those things.
So Eddie told my best friend that he thought she was gorgeous, and she said, "Well, if you like me, you'll really love my best friend." But she's back in New Orleans, and he has a big fetish for young trans girls. So he paid my ticket, and that's how I moved to Hollywood the first time.
You live with Eddie Murphy?
I didn't live with Eddie Murphy because he was, at the time I was seeing him, he was filming Harlem Nights, in case he wants to try to dispute me on this. And
Oh,
he would
really? It's the
either,
Harlem Nights ad.
oh yeah, and all of the West Hollywood sheriffs knew that when you saw his black Aston Martin or the white Rolls, that that was Eddie, and give the girls their space to do what they wanted to do because the sheriffs didn't want to bust Eddie and make the scandal. They protected him.
So Eddie Murphy flies you out?
Yes.
And when he picks you up at the airport, what's the
He
reaction?
didn't pick me up at the airport. Here's the thing.
Okay.
I'm supposed to meet him at a place called Astro Burgers on Santa Monica Boulevard
Yeah, I know.
by the old Okie Dogs. Yes. I was supposed to meet him there. Of all places.
At Astroburg?
At Astro
Right next to
Burger.
the Paramount Studios.
I swear to God.
Oh, because they were filming Harlem Nights there.
No, no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, 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 no. He just decided that that's where he wanted to meet me. So he drives by, and all the girls are like, that's him, go, girl, go. And they're pushing me. And I was like, what do I? So I start to walk towards his car, but he's like, he rolled down the window and he said, "I'm going to drive a couple of blocks back and come meet me back there." And then we ended up in the Hollywood Hills, and he has a big foot fetish.
I know, I've heard that.
And so he started looking at my feet, and he was like, "You know what? You are so naturally female looking that I bet I could take you out to dinner in the best places in Hollywood and no one would guess." And he
Your
was
feet
single.
your feet are that
He
nice?
was single at the time.
Your feet are that nice?
Oh, he wanted to see me in sandals, open-toed strappy sandals, because that's his thing. But he wanted to take me out on a real date to like a big celebrity spot.
Fuck Astroburger.
And I said, yeah, but in my head I was thinking, I don't want to be on the National Enquirer as the transsexual busted with Eddie Murphy in Hollywood, you know? Now, look, he's earned his own reputation with that game when he got caught with the one that he said was hitchhiking. Now,
Yeah.
I met her.
Oh, you know her?
I met her after the incident
Mhm.
of when he was arrested with her.
Right.
And when I met her, she came to New Orleans, and she was one of the happiest, most happy-go-lucky people you ever want to meet.
Right.
2 months later, she mysteriously jumped out of a two-story window and died. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that that's why I hadn't said his name about me until tonight. But now I'm not scared of him, because you know what? Screw you. It's the Me Too movement, and I was a teenager. You were an adult.
Wow. Well, this even goes beyond you two. This is a whole, yeah. Hashtag, wow, I didn't know this. Is that why you went to comedy?
I honestly
I
went to
just
comedy
put two and two together.
because I always had a dark, morbid sense of humor.
Did you guys write together?
No, 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 no. Although he did call me a lot for phone sex, but before he would do that, he would call me and he would say, "Okay, now come outside and go around the corner, and I'm halfway up the hill where I lived in Hollywood."
Right.
And so I would, and he'd be there. Like I said, he had.
So he would never meet you at
But he
your
never
house or his
came
house.
inside my house or anything.
It's like, yeah, it's
It was very meet in the car, exchange the money, and then he would call you, and he would want to have phone sex, and you could tell what he was doing, and then all of a sudden, you would never hear like the,
Did you hear?
You never, although that is his real laugh. Oh my God, the first time I
Yeah.
was in the car with him, and I said
Yeah.
something that made him laugh, and he started doing that, and I said, "Oh my God, that's real? I thought you were faking that all these years."
Yeah.
Luckily, he didn't get insulted, but
Right.
he was steady money
Yeah.
for me for the whole time I lived
I
out
got
here.
your dick in my mouth. It was like this whole thing.
There
It's
was a
crazy.
Puerto Rican friend of mine he really loved because she had this big, giant, round Kim Kardashian ass before
Right.
they were even in style,
Yeah.
and he was all over her like white on rice. Just he actually took her to his studio office.
Ooh, that's
And
VIP treatment.
They sat there. He sat on the desk, and she sat on the chair in front of the desk, and they both masturbated watching each other. He was very scared of AIDS. and there were no meds back then. So yeah,
How romantic.
yeah.
But wow. And when did you start doing comedy?
I started doing comedy in.
I mean, I could hear about Eddie Murphy all night, but
In my mid-20s, I wasn't going to be a stripper anymore. I really hated being a hooker, but it paid the bills. And I was mentally institutionalized to that life of making money.
well, let me ask you another question before I get into that,
Okay.
because I am curious about that. Because you were talking about your past as
Mhm.
in New Orleans, you were a strip club performer,
Uh-huh.
a
And a
transsexual,
hooker. And a bartender.
right? One at a time.
Yeah.
At a transsexual strip club,
Uh-huh.
and then then you're like, no, I'm going to do a regular strip club,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm assuming this is pre-op.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd you talk it?
Very well.
Like, how do you do that?
The first guy that I auditioned for when I started doing that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
he owned a club called the Bourbon Burlesque, and
Right.
it was the only club on Bourbon Street that had one of those Amsterdam-like windows where the girls get in the window and dance, and the guys are like looking straight up between your legs.
Right.
And so the deal was,
I've heard about those.
I had to go in his office with him, and I had to like have my G-string on, and I had to bend over in front of him. And if he couldn't spot anything, then I was allowed to work there. And I always worked in straight clubs after that.
Well, you have to put it forward and back, and you have to
Back.
adjust and do the.
And then the testes go up into the
Oh.
inguinal
Ew.
canals. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys don't know.
I don't know. That sounds like it would hurt.
It does.
Okay.
Okay. Now we got that out. I'm just curious, Hannah. I
Was that a pun? Getting that out of the way.
She's good. She's sharp. So anyway, so you were stripping, and then you said I gotta do something else. You're 25.
I was like 25, and I had a girl that within the trans community we create our own families, and she was my first trans daughter.
Okay.
And she was doing shows, so she told me, let's start doing this together. And I have loved being on stage since I was an altar boy. I mean, that was the only reason I
Right.
volunteered to be an altar boy in Catholic school, was because I got to put on the gown and be part of the procession, and like I liked being part of the show,
Right.
So I missed that from stripping, but I
Mhm.
wanted to do something else, and that's what led me to, it started off with me
Altar
MCing,
boy, stripping,
and it led
comedy.
into comedy,
Yeah.
and mud wrestling. Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
I was the first person to
Tropicana?
bring transgender mud wrestling to New Orleans in the late
Wow.
90s.
Wow.
And it was for a holiday that they have there called Southern Decadence, which I'm sure you're familiar
No,
with.
I was there when they had it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at the club I worked at, they were looking for an idea because they always make a video every year of the Southern Decadence festivities. And I said, something no one in this city has ever done has had transsexual mud wrestling.
It's
If you
amazing
do
that was
it-
never done.
If you do it, it'll pack the place. And I was right. And we got all of the fake mud from Dow, which came in these big drums, and actually it looked like a Wendy's Frosty, but felt like KY. It was kind of weird and gross and sexy at the same time. And the first girl I fought, we had been friends for years. And I told her, I said, look, I'm getting paid to host this event anyway. I'm just doing the match just to, get the girls to join me in this, And I said, so let's just put on a good show for them. You rip my bikini top off, I'll rip yours off. We'll do the little play thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, yeah, we'll put on a good show. We get in the mud.
Grandpa, if you're listening, you can stop listening right now.
We get in the mud, and the guy says, he does the countdown start, and she dove into me like a linebacker for the round.
Oh.
I was like, oh, really, bitch? You want to take this shit seriously? I'm about to teach you something. So then the next thing you know, I have her, we've ripped everything off except the G-strings, and those were barely hanging on.
Mhm.
And I have her in the corner of the pool, and I literally sat on her chest with my knees on her shoulders, pushing her down, and she was about to go under.
Uh-huh.
And she was like, you're going to fucking drown me, Jamie. And I said, are you going to give? Are you going to give? tap out.
Mhm.
And I made her tap out. And she was known as one of the bigger badasses of New
Wow.
Orleans.
Wow.
So it was kind of a big deal for me to do that.
Well,
I was
that-
rather impressed with myself.
Well,